right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Brother John Fry. Pearl, Cage Fighter. Let's see, Little Season Minister. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. I'm glad to see you guys are here, and it's a Thursday, one more day, and this week will be done. This has been a rough week, not just for me, but for my customers as well. I mean, it has been tough. We have had one nightmare job after another, and it seems like it's never going to end, but it does. And, you know, it has its down times and slow times, and then it picks back up, and that's just the cycle of it, and that's the way it goes. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of my Revelation, the Millennial Kingdom, and the Millennial Kingdom series. Tonight we're going to hit on chapter 8 and probably chapter 9, more likely both. If you've been keeping up, I've been trying to go through each of these chapters of this Revelation series, line by line and precept upon precept, because what we want to do is we want to show people that are in the doubting community and those that are new to this information how to view this thing properly so that you understand when in time you are. And you're not so confused about necessarily doing the things that you got to, go through and learn and know and understand to be able to grasp this concept. I'm going to pull this thing up. So I was kind of just sitting here relaxing. I got an opportunity to listen to Kingdom Within. I was able to listen to him live, and then I was able to listen to some J Dreamers. And before I show you this, I want to show you guys this other thing. I don't know if you've heard of him. I've been listening and following J Dreamers since, I don't know, almost 10 years now, for a very long time. This is basically what I want to say to this is I basically agree with damn near everything this man says and talks about. The issues that I think come up are always from fellow truth seekers or Christians that'll look at this or listen to him, or people that make content like J Dreamers, and just totally dismiss him and not listen to anything he has to say because his concepts and his wording sounds so foreign to us. In reality, he's talking about the same things. A lot of people are talking about the same things. It's just a different way of looking at it, or it's a different way of understanding it. Such as he likes to use words like plasma. I don't necessarily like that word, but it's not that I don't necessarily like it. I guess it's that I don't understand it that much. I never got into my research and journey never led me towards understanding of plasma, but it led me to understanding other things. Either way, the information ends up leading us back to the same place. The point of origin is all I'm getting at with that. And so whenever people are in this community come across other content creators like J Dreamers who says things that may not sound familiar with what everyone else is thinking, what it does do is it helps you understand and opens your eyes to the things that you're reading within Scripture that you may not have understood it before. And all I'm going with that is that it's hard to imagine something for the first time when it's never been imagined, or if it's never been seen. And so when we're reading Scripture and we come to people that are talking about events or stories that they have never seen, they're doing the best they can to describe it, but we're also using things that we're familiar with to help familiarize our vision of what it is we're reading and looking at or trying to see here. And so all I'm pointing out is that when people like J Dreamers, Vibes of the Cosmos, whenever they put out content and whatnot, even though it may not be Revelation chapter this, verse 9 or whatever, it's not that it's blasphemous talk is all I'm getting at. What they're talking about is real science and real, I guess, worldly understanding of an outer worldly thing. All right. So before I continue on with that, and I just wanted to stop in the beginning of this and give that shout out to Jay Dreamers. If you don't watch his content, I encourage you to watch it. And if you've watched it before and ran away from it, I encourage you to go back and try him again. Listen to what he's telling you. Listen to what he's saying and how he's explaining things. And then go back, read your book, and look through it. And as you get to these events, you can kind of visualize what he's talking about and what all these other folks are talking about. But all right, so now that I got that out of the way, I want to give a shout out to all of the chat community that's here with us this evening. You guys are awesome and amazing. By the way, and obviously we have a blue name in the house, Miss Wendy, Spirit and Truth. She's been a very helpful sister in this community, and the other night I spoke with her through email, and and basically told her how I felt and what I thought. I feel like she does a pretty good job. She has a pretty good way about keeping the hardcore trolls out. So we can focus on not just the message, but we can focus on each other. And that's what I love about this community, and I love about you guys. We have Rejoice Artworks in the house. We have Brother John Fry, Cage Fighter, Pearl Myers, Spirit, Truth, and Wendy. And let's see. Oh yeah, and we have 100-Yard Alchemist in here as well. And let's see. Looks like that I called everybody. Little Seasoned Minister. Let me miss you there, buddy. All right, Cage Fighter. Wendy is the best mod ever. Absolutely. She really is. She does a really good job of it. And, of course, I've had my eye on a few other people that I would like to approach with this idea as well. It's not necessarily that I feel threatened or anything from the outer community coming in with their little trollish ways. For the most part, you guys in and of yourselves handle everything pretty well and pretty decent. So usually you guys can run the tears off every now and then whenever they try to join the weed over here. All right, let's see. All right, we have Ain't Buying It is with us tonight. Jay Verkamp, nice to see you. Nice to see you guys. Glad to see you made it. If you guys just joined us, as looks like Mr. Ruthless Savage just joined us, you guys are picking it on up. Well, that being said, let me move on and carry on. Remember, I have ADHD, so if I end up straying too hard, I'll end up way off the beaten path. What I wanted to talk about tonight got interrupted with some other thoughts I was having. I was sitting here listening to Kingdom Within, and then after his stuff went off, I started listening to Jay Dreamers, and I don't know, I guess I was hit with nostalgia, listening to him, because he goes way back 10 years of making content and putting it on YouTube. So his research goes way even further beyond all of that. So this guy has been looking at this stuff for a very long time. And so I was listening to him and enjoying his content. And after his live stream went off, I don't know, I just came across this channel right here. This is called Rise. I went ahead and subscribed to him, and I even liked the video. And I actually did like it. But this video, what it does for you guys, if you want to watch it, there it is. I don't really think I need to link it, but what you're hearing here in this video is the other side's perspective of what's going on with this little season Millennial Kingdom missing 1,000 years community. For all of us that are familiar with what's going on as far as the great deception, the delusion that's over everyone, the Millennial Kingdom, the return of Christ in 70 AD, all of that. There are others that are on the other side of it that are hearing it as well, but they're coming at it from a different perspective. And this showcases exactly that what I'm talking about there. Here, let me turn this up here.
Thought process.
Yeah. And if you think that you're like, the other thing is, if you read what the Bible says, they encourage Bible reading with their bent, but you missed the rapture, you missed the millennial reign, and Jesus isn't even here. Where is he? You know.
That's awful.
Who are you? Because the only thing you have left is the white throne judgment. I don't think that's a good thing.
That's really it's bondage for the mind, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I think very much.
All right, enough said. You don't even, I mean, you could go back and listen to the whole 28 minutes, but that's basically what it is. The first thing that I picked up on was that when it comes to people on the other side of this, their lack of understanding often comes with interrogation of words. Like they'll attack you. They've got to attack your character. You are dumb. You are silly. You are whatever they want you to be, but you're not right. They're right. Even though they'll admit that they don't know certain things as well, they'll use that as the catalyst for their argument that we don't know as well. We understand the limits of what we do and don't know. That's not the issue we have. What we have is that there are things that are unknown that could be known that are willfully kept from us. That's what our issue is when it comes to the known and unknown. But what they're preaching here is fear and terror. They're making it sound like if you miss out on Jesus's 1,000-year reign, that it's over for you. I mean, there's no hope. You are done. And she presents this as if that's the way this community is presenting this. That we're preaching doom and gloom, that once you understand this, you realize Jesus ain't here no more, and it's over with for you. You're just done for. I mean, God, nothing matters no more. It's over. Whatever. Your life doesn't matter. And I saw what you said, ain't buying it. Yeah, I thought her voice was very condescending as well. And it was. It's not that I thought it was condescending. It was condescending. These people will they always do, Satan does this. It's double speak. They always say the thing you're doing, but it's actually the thing they're doing. They always accuse you of the very thing they're accusing you of. They're telling you that we're preaching doom and gloom, but at the same time, they're saying doom and gloom because while they may believe Jesus is coming back soon to establish his 1,000 years, they also believe most of us aren't going to make it. So they're in their own way, they're preaching doom and gloom. The issue isn't that we're not preaching that. It has nothing to do with doom and gloom. The doom and gloom has been experienced already. We learn that in Revelation and other parts of the Bible. It explains all of those doom and gloom events. Now, there is a doom and gloom event left to unfold. It hasn't happened yet. Now, it's going to, and I believe it's going to come soon. I believe a lot of us know that it's coming soon. Whether we fully understand it exactly or not, you can kind of feel the momentum and what's going on around us. There's a shift in the air, so to speak. But as shifty as that may be, there's a revival happening. It's a revival of truth. I find this through the evidence of everyday lived experience. You have YouTube content creators like the Cult of Khan. As he just hit over 1,000 subscribers, and he's growing every day, and he's going to continue to grow. He has a great vibe in his channel. His whole atmosphere is just a good vibe. You go watch Daydreamers, whether he's quoting verbatim scripture or not, whether he's looking in this source or talking about this or that, it's a good vibe. This community's vibes are amazing. It's whenever you join any other community while there may be people you vibe with, there's a large portion of that community you don't vibe with. And that's for all of those other communities except for this one. And I find it amazing. I find it that, I guess it gets to the point where I sit here and think, man, sometimes I just want to hop on there and just go live just so I can see chat roll. I don't even have to say anything. I just want to see chat rolls so I can see what Ain't Buying It has to say, see what Pearl Myers has to say, see what everybody has to say. You know, I just want to listen and take it all in and enjoy that. I just kind of get lost in the rhetoric that we have going on in this community. And so I guess where I'm going with all of that is that I started all this because after having watched so many content creators come and go and reach a peak and then fade off, some of them have stayed with it and have stuck it out and have just continued pushing through. Jay Dreamers is one of them. Cult of Khan, he's going to be one of them. Kingdom Within, he has a lot going on in his life, but yet he's still pushing through, and he's going to be one of them. He's going to be one of those that continues pushing forward, regardless if he's lost. And I understand where you're coming from, Ruthless Savage, but where I'm going with that is that, you know, not everybody exactly understands this stuff the same way. It doesn't mean that anybody is more right or wrong than the other. This is not a competition for truth. The only competition we have is against the tyranny of evil. You know, the governors, the worldly governors, the principalities, the ones who are ruling over us from behind the closet, from behind the curtain. I mean, yeah, in the closet, I guess, too. Maybe they need to come on out of that closet. But we have a very good and strong community, and there is no doom and gloom necessarily, though we know and understand there will be a major event that has to take place in order for this little season to come to a full end. We understand that regardless if we're past the millennial kingdom, the 1,000 years or not, we all know that what comes next is the best part. We get to experience a whole new world. There's no doubt in anyone that we would all love to experience 1,000 years with Jesus Christ. And regardless of the situation, we would all love to do that. I know we would. But regardless if you get to enjoy that or not, we get to experience the new world. While some people are so focused on spending that 1,000 years with Jesus, they don't even realize there may be people that never know what it was like to be in this world. There may be a time where we've reproduced to a point where people don't even know that this earth existed, is all I'm pointing out with that. Not necessarily not know as in they wouldn't have knowledge of it, but they'll never have experienced it. Just like none of your kids will grow up in this world without having known about internet or cell phones. Whereas a lot of us in this community, man, we know what it's like to not have cell phones and internet. We know what it's like to be bare bones out there riding around looking for people to hang out with, because that's just the way it used to be. And the way it used to be isn't always the way it's going to be. At least what comes next after we get through Revelation 8, 9, 10, and all the way up through Revelation 22. Once we finish this, what comes next is the new world. We get to experience a world that no person has ever experienced. That's what new means. It tickles me when I get notifications that someone responded to an old comment I left on someone's channel, and they're telling me that I'm dumb and don't know what I'm talking about because past, present, and future equates to new heaven, new earth. I don't see it, but past, present, and future means new heaven and new earth. It's an odd thing. That's an odd thing for someone to say to me, but somehow I'm the one that's confused. It just doesn't make sense. They have nothing to do with each other, except that maybe new would be in the future, but it's not past and it's not present. New doesn't have anything to do with present or the past. It has to do with to become what would come next. So it's interesting to me when I come across these channels of naysayers and people that look down on this idea and this concept of what we're talking about. And it says, like I said, they'll attack you for this, but they won't attack you for anything else. You could say any other doctrine. You can say any other form of belief when it comes to what this book says, and you won't get attacked. In fact, you might even get a grant, who knows, or a house or whatever. But what you're not going to get is popularity and fame necessarily. They'll take that from you if you don't get on board with their ship. They don't want you on the ship that's sailing towards truth. They want you on their ship. And their ship is sinking. It's been sinking since the very beginning. All right. So to kind of further bolster my point here, in Revelation chapter 8, it says, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour." The thing I love about this book is that when you read through this thing, there are constant lessons for you and me to learn. You can learn what the consequences are for almost every mistake you'll ever make in your life just by reading this book, because almost everybody goes through the same things we go through, regardless of their levels of technology. Their life experiences are very similar to yours and mine. And all this is telling me right here, when I read this, was, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about the space of half an hour. That tells me that God and the angels, they had, it was a matter of respect. Looking down, when we go back to chapter 7, what we find out is that there were some terrible events going on earth at the time. People were dying and getting killed, and it just was terrible. It was not a good time. The tribulation was horrible. And so what this is talking about is that the angels, they gave silence. They gave them a moment of silence, because even them, they're looking at these humans like, goodness gracious, these are mere people, and they're willing to die because of this man. Because this man came to them riding on a donkey, healed a few people, walked on some water, died, ruthlessly gets killed, comes back for a few days, only to leave again. And these guys and these women and men are willing to die for this man. So they stop and give him a moment of silence. This is what this is teaching you, is respect. That's all it's telling you, is to have respect for the ones who suffer for Jesus' name's sake. That's what they were doing. And so it kind of teaches you, it's a lesson to me. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, well, that's a pretty nice little lesson there. Someone dies, and you know that they've done a good service, or something bad happens, there's nothing wrong. Stop, give them a moment of silence. It's just a show of respect. And in verse 2 it says, And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, that 7 standing before him, and to them were given these trumpets. And then another angel, he comes and stands at the altar, having a golden censer. And we already went over all of that. We actually already read all of this already, but I wanted to start fresh with it. And then there was given unto him much incense, and that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hands. It's funny to me because I'll read that, and in my mind I'm envisioning the temple smelling like that, this temple like area, or this incense smelling like some really good green. Let's just put it that way. That's kind of how I imagine that to smell, that incense burning. But I could be way wrong. It could have flowery or a fruity smell. I don't know what it really smells like. I've never smelt that, whatever they're talking about. But that's what I imagine, because I kind of understand what these incense are made from and where they come from, and why we are and what we call it today. All right, let's see. John Fry says, my parents started out as Jehovah's Witnesses and then went to Methodist, then Baptist, then Independent. And that's usually the way it goes, though. People travel through these different denominations and doctrines, not because they just want to follow this group or that group. They're looking for the truth, you know. So you kind of have to. That's why I say things like, not everybody is willfully at fault for the lack of their knowledge. They just don't know certain things. And seeing Jay Verkamp says, copy that, CF. They'll certainly be surprised with how it ends up turning out. At least your parents and Pearl's and John's parents were believers. Thank God for that. I worry about my parents. You know, I can feel that. I understand where you're coming from, Jay Verkamp. I wonder and worry, not worry, but I wonder and pray is what I meant to say. For my family, quite often. I wonder what they're up to and what they have going on these days, but I also understand the strain that comes from trying to, socialize with somebody that's so very different, and I guess that's that's anyone's fault necessarily, I guess, but it's just the way it goes. I don't know, we're just not that close anymore, but everybody's kind of spread out. Our families just kind of went all over the place. Either way, thanks for sharing that. That just made me think of all that stuff for a moment there. Ain't buying it, says, yeah, here you, I worry for so many. Exactly. It's that it's not that we're trying to stir the hornet's nest. We're not trying to upset the system. We're not trying to anger people or scare people with any of this. We just want people to know our Father and to love him and to seek him out and understand him the way that we do. That's what I want people to understand from all this, that this is not. None of this is about doom and gloom. That is nothing we need to worry about. That doesn't mean that some people won't experience doom and gloom. Some people will. That's clearly obvious. But some of us, we may not. We may not experience this doom and gloom. At least not in the same way that people think we will. That's the thing that people really need to understand about waking up when it comes to this deception that's over us. So, like I said, we kind of went over some of this the other night, and I'm going to get back over here before I get too far off of this. I'm going to catch back up with verse 7, and it says, the first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. See, these words are scary. And people will read these words and cling to these words. Right here, it's telling you that a third part of the trees was burnt up, and green grass, and all the green grass was burnt up. There was no living thing, no grass. It just says, it does say a third part of the trees, but it does say all of the green grass. They'll read that and they'll cling to that and they'll get stopped. They'll get stuck right there and they start thinking, oh, well, the world's going to burn up. Whatever that they're talking about right there, that part already happened. We don't know that yet, though. If you were just reading this thing for the first time, by the time you got to that, you wouldn't know necessarily that that's already happened. We'll learn that, though. It's going to tell us that that's already happened or that is happening when it's happening. But if you, like I said, if you were reading this from the beginning, not knowing what this says, you wouldn't necessarily know that that's happened. Problem is today, we still don't know that that's happened. People still don't believe that these events have happened yet. But they're waking up to it. They're waking up to it that it's being talked about even in the opposite ends of this. And I, like I said, I showed that in that lady, when that lady was trying to belittle our intelligence or our ability to think and comprehend what we're reading here. Like I said, this book was not meant to be confusing. It was never written that way. It's not even written that way. It's written very simple, but we are educated, and so we complicate things, and that's why we get lost in this as we read it. But right here it says, and the second angel sounded, as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood. And we know that isn't going on right now, but obviously it happens at some point. It hasn't quite happened yet. He's still in the spirit, visualizing all these events before they happen. And then a third part of the creatures which were in the sea that had life, they died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. These ships were destroyed. The sea life is dying. You would see this. This would be, they couldn't hide that from the mainstream news. Could not hide that. If this was going to happen, if all these events were going to happen, we would all definitely know it's going to happen, is what I'm pointing out. The crazy wild thing is similar events like this, small areas in scale, will happen, and they will, and the media will make it seem like that's happening everywhere. Like, for example, we know that California is on fire, and a lot of stuff is burning down, and we're praying for those people there and all the stuff, and all their loss over there. But I'm not trying to make this a let's talk about California thing. I'm just saying that that's happening, and that's terrible that that's going on. That is not happening everywhere else, nor is anywhere else hardly even affected by that. Reason I'm pointing that out is when these events start happening, it's going to be known everywhere. And the only reason I'm trying to clarify that point is because we have to understand Jesus was still a man. Before he went into heaven and came back, he was here as a man. As a man, he wouldn't be in Israel or in Jerusalem, and also way over here in America, if they are on the separate ends of the earth or continent or flat plane, whatever. All I'm saying is that initially, the people that would not have been around him locally wouldn't have really necessarily experienced or been directly affected by that, but they all would have been affected by the events that took place right after Jesus died. When the earth shook, the sky went dark, the stars started falling out of the skies, Nero persecuting the Jews and coming in and killing millions of them, by the way. I was reading, I got to figure out how to get this book up on the screen, but I'm going to go over a few chapters out of this book here. The Josephus, the complete works of Josephus. He talks a lot about these events as well. He explains them a little bit. He explains these events a little bit clearer than this Bible does. However, the Bible does explain these events. All right, let's see. Little Season Fellowship. Howdy, Rev. Excuse my lateness. Hey, fam. All right, glad to see you here, Little Season Fellowship. Glad to see you guys. All of you guys are here, hanging out. That's what makes doing this easier. And John Fry's about to learn all this firsthand. He's about to be experiencing what it's like to hit that live button for the first time, and how you feel like you're going to have to get a fishing pole or a leash for your heart, because it's going to blow out your chest. At least that's how it was for me the first couple times, and I still get a little nervous coming in and getting on here. But it's because we're not in this for just ourselves. It's not for the gratification or the glorification from it. I rarely like talking about this stuff out in the real world, because most people just look at you weird, or they don't really want to talk about it, or they might say something that's going to cause you to to anger. So I try to keep all that to myself, for the most part. But I love it when we go live and you guys get in chat and just start talking and having your own little conversations while also entertaining what we're talking about. Rejoice Artworks, good to see you here. Amber, nice to see you again. Yeah, okay, yeah. I watched Tyler's video earlier as well, Amber, and I pray that he's doing well. I do love his content. I kind of just listen when I listen to him though. It's like I zone out, and it's like I'm not even here. I'm in a whole nother world listening to him, and so I just love the way he presents his message. He's got a very good positive vibe. So I feel you there. I saw his live earlier, and I had to hit like, and obviously I'm already subscribed, but for those that haven't subscribed and been to Kingdom Within's channel, by all means check him out and give him a like and subscribe. I know he'd appreciate that, but he does really good work. If you don't know who Tyler is Kingdom Within. He's also a fellow truth seeker, and he's one of the first YouTubers actually that I seen talking about the Millennial Kingdom. And so that's why I say he's a really good resource for information. And he has a really good positive vibe. John Fry says, I have no doubt we are in a spiritual war. I've heard people say we need to put on the armor of God every day. I never take my armor off. Amen, brother. Amen. And see, my brother said this best to me one time. I was over there talking to him and just venting about the way the world is, this and that. And he says, you were born into the midst of a war, even though the war you're seeing is not the same kind of war you would see on TV. Doesn't change the fact you are born into a war. And he's right. This is a war. It's not just spiritual warfare. This is a war. This is a war for truth. This is a war for God. This is a war for serving God, serving Jesus in the truth, and getting this word and this information out there so that we can try to bring as many people back to the light as we can possibly bring. And I don't mean light like Illuminati. I just mean we want people to be on the right path. The thing that fails these other content creators and researchers and Bible people that talk is whenever they get introduced to this stuff and they start hating on it, but they can't hate on it tastefully. They gotta throw in some nasty verbiage every now and then because they have to destroy your character. They gotta attack that. One thing I noticed, we don't attack their character, we attack their message or their content. There's a very strong difference there, is all I'm pointing out. Anyway, so let's see. Let me catch back up. Name Lucy, family, Jay Verkamp. Okay. I don't want to give out too much there. Blessings to you, Pearl Myers. I'm so thankful for the fellowship the Lord give us. Absolutely. We're so glad to have you here, Amber. I hope you continue to join us. And by all means, you know as well as I do that we're not all experts in this stuff. So, and this goes for any one of you. If you catch me on the wrong, point it out. Let me know, hey, that's not what it says. And, and I'm saying that because the other night I was saying George Floyd Mayweather, and I meant George Floyd. So either way, when it comes to this stuff, I want to try to get it right. So if I get it wrong, I just get it wrong, but I will correct that. So don't be afraid to speak up when it comes to that. Let's see. One day we will all meet up. Absolutely, John Fry. We will all meet up. Speaking of meeting up, as soon as we get John Fry live, we're going to have an open panel discussion with all the Little Season Fellowship YouTubers and content creators. At least that's what we want to try to do. And get as many of them in there and have like a whole panel of 10, 12 different people all talking and fellowshipping over this Little Season mystery that we've got going on, or that's going on. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, when they're talking about right here in verse 9 with all the sea life and creatures and everything dying, this would have been experienced all over the world, not just 1/3 right here in this one spot of the ocean, right here over wherever. It would be everywhere. People would be experiencing these things. And see, today we're not experiencing everything that we could be experiencing. People all over the world in combination are experiencing everything, but we're not all experiencing everything. That's why I know that some of this stuff either hasn't happened or it already has happened. It has to be one of those two things, but it's not currently happening for those that keep trying to preach that this is this time period or that time period. Let's see. In verse 10 it says, "And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the waters." So this was actually an event that happened. I don't want to get this wrong. I want to say he does share this. Jason Jack, I believe it is. He has this one. I can't remember which video it is, but it's either Jason Jack or it's Mind Unveiled or one of those two. They were talking about a book, and in that book, it had been written around the 16 or 1700s, something like that, 1800s, I think, actually, early 1800s. But it was referencing this event, and they were talking about this star coming down, and during the daytime, it was so hot outside that people had to go inside, and then they could come out at night, but for very short periods of time. But the heat was so hot from this thing as it was coming down, and this giant star, as it was coming down, it was heating up the earth, basically, is the way this book explains. I have seen that book and I can't remember it. That's why I'm trying to point them out. So maybe one of you guys knows exactly what video I'm talking about. It can help me out with that, because I would like to bring that back. I would like to bring that up and point out some stuff that's in there. But anyways, that's what they're talking about in that book. They're referring to this event in verse 10. When the great star, we end up learning that it's called Wormwood, falls from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon a third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the water. Which, again, when we go into the way the earth is shaped, and actually I'm going to show that 24-hour sun here in a little bit, you'll be able to see what this all is talking about. You can see how it would have broken up the lands the way they did, the way that they're broken up. And it kind of helped force things around. It also is just one of these precursors to the following events. And then it says, "And the name of the star," there we go. The name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Now, if this were happening anywhere in the world, we would know about it. Somebody would be talking about this. So this isn't happening, but it's not gonna happen either. It's not that it's not ever gonna happen, because it kind of did happen already. It's already happened. We don't have to worry about this. The people that think we have to worry about this don't understand who Jesus was talking about. They don't understand audience relevance because they're too focused on themselves. What am I going to get out of this? I want to be a ruler in Jesus's kingdom. I want to beam up to heaven and watch all the people I hate go through all the tribulation. I would love to do I would love all that. That's what they're hoping for. They're doing this they're looking for a Jesus for themselves. They're not looking for Jesus for Jesus. It's a very big difference between our community and the rest of the Christian community. And I say the rest, you can take any denomination, you can put them all in the same basket, boom, and then there's us. We're just that different from all of them. But that's just the way this thing works. Let's see. All right. Jenny Murphy, Tartarian Prepper. Howdy. Glad to see you here. Glad to see you made it. Little Caesar Fellowship. He says, yeah, for sure. If I can work it out, I'm trying to get something started for at least a monthly hangout, if not more. Thanks for that, John Fry. I'll go sub now. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, actually I'll pull up so John Fry, actually I helped him make a YouTube channel. I'll get that link and I'll post it in a minute. And actually not in a minute, we'll do that right now. Let's see. What did we call it, John? uh I'm not sure what we called it. It wasn't John Fry though. We called it something else, didn't we? I can't remember what I put in there. Actually, I might have subscribed to it. Okay, I'll have to figure this out. I'll have to figure that out later, Brother John. But I'll post his link in there and you guys can sub to him. But, you know, he'll be, I'll figure that out and I'll get his link posted. But Brother John's going to start his channel and he's going to start, you know, being out here talking and sharing his wisdom and knowledge with everybody. And I really do look forward to that. Oh, yeah, that's right. The Living Word, JF, the Living Word with JF. Let's see. I remember what the symbol looked like. I may have to put all the words together. We're going to get his link up here one way or the other. I'll get it up there. Don't worry. I'll get his link up there and I'll get it posted. I just have to pull this screen out and move some stuff around to be able to find it. Either way, I am looking forward to Brother John Fry's channel. I'm excited for him. I hope everything goes well with that. I don't know why that's trying to open. All right. Love how this technology works. It just sometimes does what it wants to do, which you don't feel like it should. Kind of feels like it ought to be only doing what you tell it to do. So anyways, Chris Lucas, Protestant View Live. It's only been within the last 4 years, and I started to realize how people try to make the Bible centered around themselves, rather than trying to figure out the actual meaning. Exactly. It's like they're looking for something that's going to validate their own existence. And by doing so, they cast themselves in front of the Word. And they do that quite often. And it's hard to take yourself out of it when you've been told your whole life to put yourself in it. You know, you can be whoever it is, whatever it is you want to be in life. You know, every sheep can be a shepherd. I don't buy that. But that you're right. That's absolutely right, Chris. That's what people tend to place themselves in this book where they don't belong. And they're doing that now with all these events, trying to say that they're about to come. They're about to come. They're about to come. Be prepared. Doom and gloom. It's on the horizon. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters because it was made bitter. Like I said, when stuff like this starts happening, don't worry. You will know about it. So if we're wrong, it don't matter. We're all going to know the truth here pretty soon, when that happens, when all that happens. And a fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a third part of the stars, so as a third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Okay, so actually, I think, and I might be wrong in my observation of this, but I think this video right here, I think he shows this. I think he shows what's going on and what they're talking about. So we were in Revelation, just so people want to follow along with that. In Revelation verse 12, it says, the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a third part of the stars, so as a third of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Now, I like this Vibes of the Cosmos. Now, he has some pretty good music, too, but I don't want to get a copyright on that, so I'm not going to play his music. However, I like him because he don't have to say anything. He just shows it to you. Look, that's what's going on. And So let's see. Let's see if I can pull this up. Here we go. All right. So what I want to show you right here is what I'm saying about that third part in verse 12, where it says a third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. What it's talking about there, if you notice, obviously we don't have access to all this green land way out here, but we do have access to this land within this circle. Even though your governments don't want you to know about this little patch of land, regardless of that patch of land or not, we're confined to this circle part right here. Now, what I'm getting at, where I'm going at with this, is that a third part, I don't know how much of this, but what I'm saying is that during this event, what ends up happening is that that's when all of this starts getting trapped. For some reason, my journey led me to the belief that all of this land here would have been inhabited by the people of Jesus's day, and even before that. That they weren't confined to this little area the same way you and I are. They had access to all of this land. And what ends up happening is they end up getting confounded, I guess, or confined to this area right here. Not necessarily because someone's pulling them and pushing them and telling them, hey, you got to go over here, but because people would have eventually left these lands to go here and be here to survive, because you probably would have struggled. It probably would have been harder to live out here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on outside of our little area, because none of us have ever been, and no one will let us get out there. So what I'm saying is that I think that's what he's showing here. But this video was made in response to the Flat Earth video about the final experiment and how there's no 24-hour sun, or there's a 24-hour sun down there. And because there's a 24-hour sun, that proves the Earth's a ball. Well, he's about to show you, he's going to show you what he's thinking there is is how the 24-hour sun works. Let me pull this up. I'm going to pull this up here. All right. Actually, I remember now what pen I used. All right. I'm pausing it right here. Let's see if I can do this. All right. So he's doing, I'm going to see if I can draw on this. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that yet. I'm learning this stuff. I'm going to get it all figured out where I can show this better. If you'll see there, well, regardless of that, notice how in this image there, what he's showing you here, this would be, here, I think this is too close. So this right here, what you're seeing on this outer edge here, he's showing you that this is the firmament. This is the firmament. The firmament goes around this outer area right here. This area is where we're at. The reason this area is blue and green is because of our sun that's right here. This sun is small and localized and moves around like this. He's going to zoom out in a moment, but what happens here is you don't see it, but there's another kind of like a bubble is almost. It kind of goes over this, and that's where a lot of our atmosphere comes from. But anyhow, let's see. Let's move this forward. I'm going to pull this up. Here it goes. It says right here, it's showing you the reflection of the sun on the electromagnetic dome. And here he's showing you the rotation of it. What happens is, as this sun moves or revolves clockwise or east to west, opposite of it, out here on this dome, it refracts or reflects. And so it's actually like the sun is moving one way, but then you have this reflection that's moving the other way. And so from a fixed point on the outer ring of this, it would look like the sun's moving around in a circle, when really you're only seeing it half of the time. The other half of the time you're seeing is a reflection of it. Here we go. See, this is a good picture. You notice how he's highlighted it here so you can see. As this sun moves around, goes around in a circle. Yeah, make sure I'm looking at that right. So as this sun moves around in a circle like this, what happens is, as this sun moves over here, this light over here ends up moving this way. So as this does this does this. And at some point, the two images kind of cross over each other, but you don't notice it. You don't see it. Because the sun is really too bright for us, but we don't see it from where we're at anyways. You'd have to be out there on the edge to see this happening. Is the reason why I'm pointing this out. That's the weird. That's why. All right, I'm gonna show you that. Actually, that's a good question, Ruthless. I thought the same thing at first when I first discovered this. If the sun is moving one way and the reflection is moving the opposite way, why doesn't it look like the sun does this and then goes back the other way? Like, why doesn't it go backwards? That brings in what I was talking about when I was explaining. Let's see if I find it. This other page here. Pull this up. Bring this over here. Boom. Okay, what I'm basically showing you here is this here, is that this, let's say this is the flat plane, and let's say this is the firmament. You have this little, it's not a physical dome. This part is physical. This outer part is physical. But this part is not physical necessarily. It's more like, it's like an actual bubble. But what happens is, as the sun is moving around here, this direction, yes, it is doing the opposite direction, reflecting. But then this reflection, it's kind of like, actually, let me do it like this. So it's almost like that. And so what happens is the sun's here, reflects off of here, but then reflects back. So it ends up, when from our perspective, yeah, you're right, the sun would be moving this way, and you would think it would go back the other way. But the point where you would think it would flip back, because of this double reflection right here, it ends up going back the other way. And so it actually, it's almost like it's like an illusion of self-correction of what's going on. That's what he's showing you here in this image. And I know some people, or at least one person, had asked me if I had explained this, or if I had shown this when I was going over my moon map. And I didn't explain this in my moon map, but I was explaining how we have a double dome situation going on. You have a physical firmament, and then you have this. But this is a result of the ether, or not the ether, but the energy coming out from Rupus Nigra as it interacts with the ether, and it creates this. It looks better if you draw it this other way, but essentially you have this mountain right here. It creates this dome thing right here, like that, and it's like water gets trapped in it. Essentially, when you see that rocket, those videos of the rockets, and you see this, and it looks kind of like that as it streaks across, that's what it's doing. It's cutting through this. But once it gets out of that, it's out here. The problem with that is I don't think they've ever gotten even outside of that. They can't get outside of this bubble, this watery bubble. So I really don't think they're going to get outside outside the firmament and break that glass ceiling like Hillary seems to think we're going to get to do at some point. But that's what, anyways, back on track with this. I'm glad you had asked that question. This is, like I said, this is what he's showing you, is how this light, it's almost like three different points of light, but the third point overlaps the first point. So essentially, it's like two lights following each other. Is basically, I know that's probably not the correct way to explain that, but that's the way. That's the way that's the best way I can explain it, I guess. I don't understand why this is not complicated to me, but it's not. And you see how there he's showing you how that light source or reflection ends up going the opposite direction, and then he's gonna, he shows how it reflects back, but he's not really showing you how it reflects back. I don't think he's figured that part out yet. It looks like I think he has, because he put out another video today about the frozen ice ring. This was pretty cool. And for those that are new to this image comes from, it's just an overlay of the moon. That's all this is. It's the moon overlaid. Well, there he goes. He showed it to you. This is why I say I don't necessarily know or think that our Earth itself was even a circular flat plane. I mean, I don't know necessarily that it's a square or straight, but I think it's a lot bigger than what we can even conceive. It's just massive, our world is. Okay, yeah, so he's showing you these rings, the way this ice works. Now, the reason he has this image highlighted this way is he says there's another sun out here or something, he thinks. I think he does make a video showing that. I don't know about that. I don't have any way of proving that, and I don't have any way of getting you to understand that, so I can't say that one way or for certain on that, but I'm almost certain, pretty positive on my double dome theory is what let me clarify that I'm gonna say that's a theory, and I don't like to say that often. When it comes to my research in the Bible, I feel like a lot of this stuff wouldn't have made sense to me had I not read the Bible, now that I look back on it all. All right, let me catch back up with where everybody is going on here. I pray about everything. He doesn't always answer right away, but at some point, that's right. Let's see. I don't have all the answers. Some things I just take on faith. Absolutely. My discernment says it's a lie. Ain't buying it. I've seen them come and go through portals. Oh, wow. So I guess you're talking about the, whatever it is, it's entering, coming and going. It's flying around up there. All right. See, Jay Verkamp says, we are finally at a point in our lives where we know there is so much we don't know. It's actually liberating to not think we know it all, right? And I could see where you're going with that. I could see how it would be like a burden lifted off your shoulders to know that, I mean, to be able to look at something and go, it's okay that I don't know how that works, but it works, and just kind of move on with your life and just not worry about it. As long as it's whatever it is you're dealing with, it's working. Who cares how or why? Now, some people do, and you can't hate the ones that like to figure all that out. And I'm one of them. That's what led me to all of this. Like I said the other night, originally I came into this with an intellectual mind. I'm going to master this. I know this. I'm going to understand this. And I ended up not understanding any of it. I had to read it over and over and over again. And finally it just clicked. And I think it was because I was trying to go over it with my kids, and going over it with them this way, it ended up making sense to me. But it also opened my eyes to a point. I think I sat there and was like, holy mess, this is crazy. Everybody needs to know this. And then you go out in the world, you start telling everybody, and all of a sudden you're crazy town. You're in crazy town. Except that you're the crazy one, and everybody else in crazy town, they're not crazy ones. But everything they know and believe is a dream. It's a false reality. And when you wake up from that, you understand what all these terms like the Matrix and all that come from, and what they're going on about. Let's see. Good night, Brother John Fry. I know you got to get up early. I think you're about an hour ahead of me. Yeah, you are. So it's pretty late for you. So I understand, Brother John Fry. Good night and God bless. I'm glad you were able to make it, brother. Let's see, ain't buying it says, sun and moon going in and out of portals. Oh, yeah. So the book of Enoch explains how the sun and moon circuits go, and the calendar is based on the two, not on either one. Exactly. Absolutely. Actually, you're right. So that's actually where I began this understanding on the earth rotation, like how the sun and moon rotate around us. When I was reading Enoch and trying to understand what you're talking about, where it's explaining how the sun and moon they circuit, how their circuits work, You're right. There's these portals that they come in and out of. The thing is, this happens instantaneously that I don't think we notice it. We can't see it. Especially since most of us can only see some of the sun at any given time anyways. We can't see it for its full duration, in its full route, rotation around us anyways. But yeah, that's a really good starting point for understanding any of that stuff in the vibes of cosmos. So if you want to get some spiritual understanding with it, then definitely, yeah, I would go check out the Book of Enoch and read through that, because it does explain all this stuff. The problem is they explain this stuff with the understanding, or with the mindset, I guess, that you and I already have a familiarity with some of this stuff. The issue is we don't, so it is like reading something that we just haven't ever seen before. Let's see. Cage Fighter says, gee, thanks for the now. Get this song out of my head. All right. Oh, Funky Town is better. Yeah, that happens to me too. I'll get a good song stuck in my head and I'll have it on repeat for days. Our mechanical angels pushing them, and everything has a cycle. All right, so we'll catch back up with that in a minute. Let's see. Where was I though? Oh yeah. Final verse. It says, and I beheld, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. The reason he's saying this is kind of a reflection back on verse 8. Verse 1 in chapter 8, when it says, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven. It's kind of like foreshadowing. That's what that was right there in a way, because that's kind of what they're referencing right here. Is this angel is, they're not, they're wild. It is rough on Christians and people on earth right now during that time, when these events start taking place. When tribulation kicks off, it's really bad. When these seals start getting opened and these angels start blowing their trumpets, it is very, very bad on earth. And that's what they're referencing. That's all he's saying. He gives them, he's telling you, that it's so bad that even the angels gave him a moment of silence out of respect. And then here he's singing this. If he's with a loud voice, he's yelling this. He's proclaiming, look how bad this is. He's crying. They're crying. They're upset, and they're mourning for you and me and those that would be experiencing that if we were there. That's what I mean when I said you and me. And the rents. You're very welcome, Wendy. Thank you for being back, and thank you for helping me out with being a mod on this channel for me. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. It's a blessing to have you in here, and it's a blessing that I've been able to find this community, and I've said this before, but it's really nice when you've gone 4 decades with no one really in your corner when it comes to talking about this stuff. Hope my OBS is still going. It says it stopped. Never mind. All right, so hopefully my OBS is working. I just got a weird notification said it stopped, so if it did, I apologize. Either way, I'm going to keep going because at least it says it's recording. But yeah, like I said, it's a blessing because I have all you guys to talk to. Even when you're not watching me, you're watching the same people I'm watching. You're following the same crowd, and we're all in the same chat community. It's really a blessing. You ask God for something, He will give it to you. It may not be what you're imagining, but we always have to remember our ways are not God's ways. They're His ways. And that means take you out of it. All right, moving on. Let's see, chapter 9, in Revelation, it says, and the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of the great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Verse 1 and 2, what they're talking about is the loosing of Satan. And when that happens, obviously that hasn't happened yet, but it as we're reading this, it hasn't happened yet. That's what I mean by obviously it hasn't happened yet. However, for the ones that are in the know on this, we know that this has already happened. This did happen already. However, someone new to this, you wouldn't know that. Not without education, not without a history teacher, not without college, not without the History Channel, mainstream media. You wouldn't know that this had or hadn't happened without them telling you one way or the other if you had never read this. So reading this for the first time, you don't know that this has happened yet, but we're going to get to that point where it does. But that's what that's talking about. The great furnace and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the smoke that come out of the pit. And then it says, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. But these weren't just some ordinary locusts. Check this out. It says, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. In the context in chronological order, I guess is the best way to say that. In chronological order, what would have been taking place is once this event takes place where the locusts come out, all the martyred Christians would have been martyred and dead by now. The only people left on our team would be the 144,000. They're the ones that were there to the very bitter end of tribulation. And that's what this is talking about. So that everyone else that's not martyred, that is also not the 144,000, that's basically just unbelievers and just people out here who just so happen to be surviving these tribulation events. All those people, that's what they're talking about. So this isn't, they're not going after that. That's just the locusts are going after those men and whatnot. That's what that's talking about. It's not talking about, well, all I'm saying is that at this point, if this were happening, which, like, again, this is just foreshadowing the future events that are yet to come, as it's telling you that there will be people left on earth still that are not saved, that are just out there. This is happening during tribulation, but this also takes place even after tribulation, where you still have people that are not necessarily saved. They're not necessarily evil people, but they're not good either, by no means. Let's see. All right, so, and then it says, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. Faces of men. Horses prepared for battle. These locusts were not just some normal locusts. They were massive. But if we're looking at this from a scientific or Daydreamers type of perspective, I could see this happening, but the locusts aren't any different than they are today, except that they would have been their natural size. In other words, nothing today is its natural size. Well, it kind of is. It's natural to its current environment. But your natural size would have been what your size would have been during the original environment. The original environment would have been the pre-flood environment and the pre-Nephilim environment, where you had giant trees that branches came out and covered us like a dome. Just a big, huge, massive tree. It's everywhere. Just not that it was a dome. I'm just saying it's just massive trees everywhere. And as you have these massive trees everywhere, you have massive life. Everything would have been bigger. Even the locusts would have been bigger. And so from a more of a logical perspective, reading this, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe it's not like they're any different than the current locusts. Maybe they're just bigger versions of our locusts. And there again, if the locusts from before the flood so happened to spawn out of the earth today, they would look to us the size of a horse. And so naturally they would want to eat us because we would be like food to them, basically. So, but that's what that's talking about. And all I'm pointing out with that is just be glad you didn't have to experience that. That would have been terrible. Even if you didn't get eat up by a locust, it would have been awful going to check the mail and my neighbor gets picked up by a locust. I don't think I would want to live through that time. You see, so I guess this is doing is it just keeps bringing me back to what that woman was saying in that video, how they're trashing this topic. And they're saying that we're the ones preaching doom and gloom. Look at all of this. This is just one chapter of events, and this is all terrible stuff that's happening. But they're preaching that it's about to happen. That we're going through it either right now. We're going through this stuff, and it's happening right now, and it's gonna continue, and it's getting this and that. While it may continue to get worse and worse, we don't have to worry about any of this. All of this has been done, has taken its course, and it's been completed. And we can believe that because that's what Jesus was telling us. Now, getting back to this, where it says, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. So those last few verses, even though I say we're going through this line by line, we're focusing on precept, that's context. So all that was them just describing the horror they would have been seeing when it comes to these locusts, these great and massive locusts. So it would have been, yes, absolutely, Jenny. It would have been terrifying. You wouldn't want to go through that. So for the Christian community that seems to think we're headed into this, I hate it for them. We're not the doom and gloomers. They are. So we're trying to get them on board with us. All right. So it says, where was I? Verse 10. Oh, verse 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. Now, who was locked up in the bottomless pit? The angel, Lucifer, was locked in the bottomless pit. Whether he was Lucifer in the beginning and they called him something else or not, by the time that they're writing this revelation in this book, and when it comes to us, he's called Lucifer, so we're going to go with that for this moment. I have some other stuff, and I can show you some other things on his name and names and where these names come from. We'll go over that another day. We'll do I'll do a video or a live one. We'll kind of go over some of these explanation on some of these names and why they are what they are. But for now, we know that that's Lucifer that was released from the bottomless pit, and whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. We know who that is because we've read all this already, some of us, and we're past this point. But those who aren't past this point, well, they don't know any of this yet. Once they get to verse 12, it says, one woe is past, and behold, there come two more woes after. And the sixth angel sounded, And I heard a voice, the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God. So before this sixth angel, one woe has passed. And behold, there will come two more woes. So that some terrible stuff's happened. Now they're going to go through the two more events. They've just got eat up by locusts. Giant, scary, terrifying locusts just came up out of nowhere. And now they've got to deal with two more crazy events. What else do they have to deal with? Okay, let's see. It says, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God. They're those angels before God with their trumpets. What I'm envisioning with this is that God's sitting there giving these orders. And when he gives the order to go this way or that way, the angels blow their trumpets. And when they blow their trumpets, it gives them the next group, the next set of angels, their signal for them to make their move and open up their seal. That's basically it's just showing you the hierarchy and God's hierarchy in heaven. That's why that's really all that this is important for in the big scheme of things, when you understand that all this has already happened. However, if you don't know that this has already happened, this has a whole lot of other meanings. Yeah, a whole lot of other meanings that benefit you and don't benefit you necessarily. And so that's why I say it. That's why I say those things sometimes. Like, that's all this is important for. It's not that it's not important any more further beyond that. And so I don't want you to take it that way. I'm just saying that that's really what this boils down to, is that none of this would be important if you understood that we're already past that. But knowing this does help you understand that we're already past this. Then it says, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay a third part of men. If you took a third part of the world's population today, it would be nearly 3 billion people. To kind of put that into perspective, especially for those of us here in America, that's literally everybody on this side of the world. That's Canada, America, Mexico, Brazil, all of South America, all of North America. That's all these people. The only other ones left are all those on the other side of the world, with Paul and his group of people over there. Oh, and Donut, if he were here, because he's over in Scotland. So yeah, Donut and Paul, yeah, they would be safe. But the rest of us over here, we'd be gone. That's what a third means in context there, for those that want to try to visualize how significant that number is. That's a lot. That is a lot of people. Now, I am using today's number of people to compare that, but if you could imagine this world, it's not much different today than it was then, because it even says during that time that there were people, so many that they were it was like counting sands of the sea. There was a period where there were a lot of people, even though mainstream media and whatnot has tried to convince us that this is the only time in history where there's been this many people. There has been this many people before, but that time period was during the Roman Empire time period. That's when there was this many people before. That's why I stick and cling to the idea that while Jesus was walking around doing his ministry, that you would have had people that would not have known about him until after he died. And not because they couldn't know about him, just because they had their own lives and their own things going on. Just like I said earlier when I was talking about California, and see, we done forgot I even mentioned that. But we're over here, we're not affected by it, so we're not care. We kind of heard about something, and we're moving on. And that's kind of how it would have been back then. There was so many people everywhere that that you would have had to have a major event like Jesus coming down from the clouds with all his angels with him and all his soldiers with him. You would have had to have a huge event like that to happen for everybody to see this thing. These disciples would have had to be martyred and come back to life so that their new bodies could allow them to travel and move around better than we do, right? I would assume. All I'm saying is that what they preach today and what is stuff that's already happened, and we can kind of use today's events as a way to prove that today is not then. Is all I'm pointing out with that. Today's events are not those events of this time. Saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Now, saying to the sixth angel, someone pointed that out the other day in one of my other videos, saying to the sixth angel which had had the trumpet loose the four angels which are bound in the great river, great river Euphrates. Okay, so this is where this idea, and I don't know, I kind of lean towards it sometimes, but the idea that God, even Satan himself, are more of an idea than an actual physical resemblance. That's where that theory or whatever of that train of thought, that's where this comes from. When it says, all right, let's see, just so I'm clear on what I'm saying, because it's a really hard concept to explain without sounding crazy. Saying to the sixth, when it says, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Now, when we say things like Satan was loosed, some people will say that that's like the essence of Satan is loosed, and it's kind of taken over the hearts of men and women. And then what you have here are these four angels, and these four angels are the physical manifestation of that Satan. And kind of like Jesus is the physical manifestation of God. That's where that whole line of thought, that's where that comes from. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is not to tell you that that's where my train of thought is, but to let you understand that I understand where that comes from, and then I understand that may or may not be right. But it does kind of make some sense when you think about it. Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. It's talking about loosing these four angels that were bound under the Euphrates. Well, we also know Satan was bound in the bottomless pit. Now, like I said before, I kind of lean on that a little, but at the same time, I'm bound to this literal way of looking at this. In order for me to understand this, really, that's how I had to do it. And when I do that, you wind up realizing it does separate the two. So you do have a separate four angels from the angel in the bottomless pit. I mean, it doesn't. It's not like they're reiterating the same thing here as they were doing before when I explained that in earlier chapters, where it repeats itself twice. At first when I read this, that's what I thought it was doing, that it was just basically telling you that Apollyon or Abaddon was really the four angels. Now that I've kind of came to the understanding of the little season, I'm of the mindset now that that's two different. It has nothing to do with it. I mean, the events are taking place, but they're not the same. Satan is his own thing, separate from those four angels. Now, that's just my thought on that. I don't necessarily have a way to prove that, and I don't think anyone else does either, but by all means, for those that do, enlighten us. And then as it says in 15, it says, and the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year. So a year, a month, a day, and an hour. So 1 year, 1 month, 1 day, 1 hour, for to slay a third part of men. And that's where it talks about, it actually brought that back up here where it was saying, I think actually, where was that? Such angel, and behold, the two, when it was talking about the woes, the first woe, when a third part of them. So these angels are creating these events. They're controlling these events. When they were loose, they prepared for a while, and that's just letting you know that there's a time period while they're out that they're not actually doing anything, and then all of a sudden they start going to work. When they start going to work, it says the four angels were, it says the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000 thousands. And I heard the number of them. I've seen a lot of people describe this number a lot of different ways, but point is, that's a lot of people. He says the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000 thousand, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. There we go, vision. Like I said, he's still in the spirit. So all of these events are not happening yet. This is foretelling future events for the question the narrative people. When they get into this type of stuff, they seem to think that, I don't know what they're thinking. I'm not getting into that tonight. But that's what I'm saying, is that this, all that is I'm pointing out proper grammar. He's just telling you, this is just letting you know that he's still in the spirit. All right, so let's see. Night J, Night Cage. Okay, you guys got to go. All right, I see you guys got to go. It is late. I'm sure it is late. It's 9:43 where I'm at. So a lot of you are either ahead of me on time, and some of you are further behind me on time. So good night, you guys, and thank you guys for being here. Let's see. Ain't Buying It says, I don't remember where I read it. It was around the time I was reading the Adam and Eve books, but it may have been in another one, and I looked it up online. Once it said he was 60 cubits, 90 feet tall. You know, that's interesting. You know, I know exactly what you're talking about. Ain't Buying It, and I think that is in the first book of Adam. And I hope you're right, because that's a different outlook for me on it, because for some reason I want to say it was 36 cubits, or not 36 cubits, 6 cubits, not 60 cubits, but 6 cubits, and I had figured 6 cubits to be roughly 36 feet tall. But that does actually make sense. 60 cubits being 90 feet tall, it kind of brings it down. It kind of breaks it up into threes. So I could see how that could be more accurate. But yeah, so for anyone who is actually reading chat, what Ain't Buying It's referring to is the pre-flood humans. The pre-flood humans, which are in DNA the same as you and me. The only difference is their bodies grew bigger and taller and stronger, because they lived in a much more perfect environment than what we live in today. Our environment's been corrupted. Heavily corrupted. All right, let me not get too far off of this before I lose track of time. Like I said, he saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the head of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. So, yeah, it's just giving you an illusory description of all these soldiers, but it's letting you know that this is a vision. So it's not quite happened yet. We haven't made it that far. But by these three was the third of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. So you have fire, smoke, and brimstone. They're being burned up. A lot of this that they're talking about is like when Wormwood comes and all of that starts happening. That's this event. That's so back to what I was saying before. When something's mentioned twice, it's usually important, or it's validating or verifying it. Earlier, when it was referring to Abaddon and the four angels, we concluded that that's not the same thing. However, what it's talking about right here, by these three, the third part of men were killed by the fire, by the smoke, by the brimstone, which was issued out of their mouths. It's telling you, it's just telling you again that a third part of the men were killed. It's just telling you twice. It's now in there for the second time. In verse 15, it says, and a year for to slay a third part of men. So it doesn't slay a third part of them twice. It's not what it's telling you. It's just letting you. It's just basically describing the same event twice. That's what this Bible does a lot. It does repeat itself, but it only repeats itself in certain places where they felt it was important. So it's kind of like highlighting that for you. And then it says, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads with them. They do hurt. For their power is in their mouth. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were like unto serpents, and they had heads, and with them they do hurt. And had heads, and with them they do hurt. So what that is doing is it's telling you that these people knew what to say. So I was watching the press secretary give talk earlier, where the media comes in and they ask her questions and she spits facts at them, and sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't. One of the comments about it was that she is so smart and so witty and so fast with her responses that no one's going to come close to whooping this woman in a debate. Basically, the reason I'm pointing that out is that's kind of what this is referring to. Is it says, for their power is in their mouth and in their tails. It's just saying that they knew exactly what needed to be said. So in other words, there's so much going on in the world during these events that it's kind of like the whole Trump situation. The whole world was against Trump until things got bad. Then when things got bad, all of a sudden the whole world went for Trump because Trump's saying he can fix it. What this is saying is, for their power was in their mouth. It's just telling you that when they spoke with all the bad that's going on, the people were willing to listen. So while people were dying and suffering and going through these tribulation events, people were being saved and being brought to Christ. That was still happening. So I'm pointing that out to clarify for the doom and gloomers that even in their worst moments, it's not going to be all that. It's still going to be moments that they're going to be okay, is all I'm pointing out with that. All right, so verse 20. All right, let's see. Let me back up, make sure I didn't miss anything. There's some chat going on right now. It seems to be popping off. Says, you're most welcome, sister. Defaults to top every single time you exit and come back. Oh, I didn't know that. Is mine set to top? Oh, I should have put my chat on live on all messages. I didn't realize. I thought I had it set that way. But I didn't. My fault on that. Okay, so let's see. Let me catch back up. Pearl Meyer says, I'm still processing that Adam, even were not the same size of us. And Eve, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So Pearl Meyer says, I'm still processing that Adam and Eve were not the same size of us. I don't know if I can buy it unless I see scripture, to be honest. Yeah, and see, that's one of those things, Pearl, that it's not necessarily important. I mean, it's cool information to know, and it is helpful for some people. Like for me, learning that it just helped validate certain things. It helped make things made things in Scripture make more sense to me. But I get that seeing is believing for some people when it comes to stuff like that. At the end of the day, it's one of those things that knowing that information doesn't necessarily help you, but it can, but it's an internal thing. It's not like God needs you to know that. So whether we're right or wrong with that it doesn't necessarily matter on that. That doesn't change anything. But it is interesting and good stuff to know. Amber says, I'll have to remember to switch it. Oh, okay. She's referring to the live chat. I think they were bigger than us for sure. Absolutely. This comes from Wendy. And see, Ain't Buying It says, Pearl Myers, what about all the giant doors in the magnificent buildings? Yeah, and the no bathrooms. Now, that's a very clever thought there. I thought about that when I was looking into those old buildings. See, I'm a plumber, and I find it fascinating how they have these magnificent fountains everywhere. And you have to know how plumbing works for those fountains to be able to operate the way they do, especially without them breaking down or tearing up on them and whatnot. And so when I realized that, and looking into these buildings and noticing that none of them have bathrooms or even kitchens, makes you wonder where they're eating or where they're getting their food. But it does make sense now when I look at that time period and think and realize that it actually could have. Let's see if I can find if I can pull this picture up here. Give me a second here. Let me find it. Image. Let's see. Where is this image? We'll call it image. We're going to be over in this page. I need to find what's human. All right. So I'm going to pull this picture up. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about, just to kind of give you a visual of what we're referring to about people's sizes and stuff. Okay, so I had ChatGPT draw me this image. What this is showing you here, basically, what Ain't Buying It and are talking about when it comes to the height of people, is that before the flood, people would have been more like this really tall guy or this really tall guy back there. But after the flood, men would have gotten substantially shorter over as each generation passed. This wouldn't have been an immediate or a rapid event, but it would have been a rapid event in the big scheme of things. What I'm saying is that within just a few generations, this would have started happening. You would have started seeing your grandkids being a half the size of you, if you were Noah, basically, in that time. And then when you had the Millennial Kingdom, it does make sense to me that if they were given their glorified bodies, that their glorified bodies would have been bigger than your current body, because you would have been normal. You would have been back to your glorified original self had you never been a product of sin. And had we never been a product of sin and we just always had our glorified bodies, we would have been our original selves without sin causing us to die. Cutting down the trees and removing the viability of our atmosphere is what ultimately led to this decrease in this height and size for all of us. But that's what so that's what we're talking about when we refer to these different heights. And it's why I think some of these doors absolutely were massive like that, because the people that were opening them were massive. They would look like giants to you and me right now if they were here. And we would probably be afraid of them. Just, at least I would be. I would be terrified of somebody 15 feet tall walking around, 20 feet tall walking around. I say terrified. I mean, more or less, I wouldn't want to give them any trouble, is all I'm going with that. All right, so we're almost through this whole chapter here. And then we'll be wrapping this up. It says, and it says, and the rest of the men which were not killed by the plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor walk, neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorcerers, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. What that's telling you is that all the men who survived these events, that were not sealed and were not martyred for Jesus' namesake, that they were the worst, they were bad people. They just so happened to survive this thing. Now they don't continue to survive. They meet their demise. It's coming, but we're not there yet. We'll be there on Revelation 10 the next time we come back to this live. And like I said, I'm going to try to stick to this schedule of Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 10. At some point, I may pick it up where I'll do, say, Tuesday, Thursday, and say Saturday at some time. I would like to do at least three lives a week. That would be good. But maybe on that third live, I don't do my Bible study. We'll just do a hangout session. Maybe I'll bring John Fry on and we can talk, and get Colty Connor on and we can just have a conversation, a question and answer. We just kind of get together and hang out or something. But in the meantime, next Tuesday, 8 to 10, we'll be picking right back up with Revelation chapter 10. Before I say goodnight, let me look back over here at chat and catch it back up with everybody. Let's see. No pollution in the skies, Spirit of Wendy says. She's referring to what I was talking about earlier, about how the environment would have been way nicer and better than it is today before the flood. And after the flood, it would have been sort of decent, even for a little while, but it still would have been rough because they had to go out and replant the world, as it was basically a wasteland. Right after the flood. Amber says, my thought with it was genetic modification. I will definitely study into this. Yeah, that's interesting because, see, I went down a long rabbit hole on the genetic modifications, and one thing I found in that was it kind of, I kind of went over this in another live a while back, but I'll kind of reiterate it here. I was about 18 or 19, I think I was at the time, and I was writing a fantasy novel. And the fantasy novel was based on all the different races of beings or breed or type of humanoid type creatures that would have been would have spawned from the angels and the women breeding. And that's where we get like orcs and ogres and fairies and elves and centaurs and all of that. And so it led me into that, but ultimately all of that, Amber, really wound up bringing me right back into this. And when I found out where Ain't Buying It was talking about in the Book of Adam, where it talks about him being 60 cubits, and you may be right on that, Ain't Buying It. For some reason, I've always remembered it being 6 cubits, which I equated it out to be 36 feet tall, roughly. But if it ends up being 60 cubits at 90 feet tall, the math does seem to make more sense with that. So either way, 90 feet tall to today, that's a huge difference. And you would look at those people like they're giants. And so that's why I envision this world to be much bigger than what we're told and what we're shown, because even the giants were much bigger than even what we would think of as a giant. And so if we saw one of the pre-flood giants, the massive, the most tallest Titan style giant there was, it'd be no different than you walking through the grass in your yard, walking past bugs that you don't even notice. You know, we would be that small to some of those giants. And so that's why it makes sense to me that Adam, even at whether it's 36, 60, or 90 feet tall, he would still be puny compared to those really big old giants up there. Okay, so Ain't Buying It says, Pearl, yep, there are little people too, but I don't believe they are saints. And Jesus and the saints ruled here during their the reign. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. And I'm not sure if there are any other races of people that are different sizes than us anymore, but that would fall into that little theory I have about there could be nations of people existing in those other lands separate from where we're at over here, and that they know nothing about us the same as we know nothing about them, basically, because we're all ruled by the same people. And so I kind of would, that's where my mind would take me with that. And that's how I would research that and try to discover that. But yeah, I do think there were at one time little people, just kind of like like Gulliver's Travels, where you had different areas of different sized people. But I don't think it had anything necessarily to do with genetic manipulation. I look at it from a father figure point of view. As a father of sons, if their children, for example, if I had 2 sons and I had to marry their children together, and one of them was having 30-foot tall kids and one of them was having 6-foot tall kids, I would encourage them to separate in marriage and not try to mix, because that would be an awkward scenario. But regardless, what would end up happening is potentially is that you would have now whole little nations of tall people and little nations of small people. But all of this ends up happening post flood, like I said, where we start decreasing in size and height due to the environment changes from the deluge. Says, okay, Earl Myers says, okay, we'll just have to agree to disagree for now. Absolutely. Like I said, we don't always have to understand the same thing the same way. We're on the same team, though. That's one good thing about it. It says, Jenny Murphy says, I think we are like hobbits in height relative to the height of antediluvian men. Yeah, okay, yeah, so I could see that. We could be, as far as if you were comparing us to them back then. All right, so Spirit of Winnie says, we've been devolving since sin was introduced. Absolutely. See, like I said, you guys already know some, like y'all know this stuff, some of it, or all of it, potentially. And what I'm saying is that just because I'm saying it different than what you were saying it in your mind when you were learning this stuff doesn't mean we're talking about different things. And that's the point I was pointing out about J Dreamers. And I know Wendy understands that, but like other content creators, they're not necessarily talking about anything different just because they're calling it different names. There's no definition or defining name for a lot of this stuff we're all learning and discovering, because it's going to be called whatever we all agree to it to call it. Is all I'm pointing out with that. All right. Amber says she's definitely a hobbit, only 5'1", so these height numbers would be insane. Absolutely. If I see a really, really tall person of any gender, I would be immediately humbled. Just like I grew up being tall in my family. It's funny because they used to talk about that, and it all the time. Every time we'd get together, it was always how tall I was, how much taller I was than everybody else, and how it felt good. So I loved that part about being around family. Problem is, as soon as I get out in the real world, away from family, all of a sudden my 5'9" is not tall enough anymore. I'm a little bitty fella. I'm short in comparison to everybody else around me. But I don't know. I feel like 5'9" is supposed to be tall. It's just, I guess, not that tall. So I'm not that tall. So if anyone wants to know, I'm 5'9". I'm not 6'11" or 12, and I'm not a midget. I guess I think we could say that now and not get banned. But if we can't, I apologize. I don't mean any disrespect by that. So if you're a little fella, then you're welcome. I'm glad you're here if that's the case. But it's not I'm not hating on you. I promise. So anyhow, all that being said, we caught up with all of that. So good. We were able to catch up with Revelation 8 and 9 this episode. Like I said, next episode will be at Revelation 10. We'll pick right back up with that. We're moving along pretty good, and we continue this. Forlog will be at chapter 20, and then we'll be able to show everyone what we're talking about, those that are new to this. When he says, haha, Rev, I was always compared in height of the girls. It would explain a lot. It really would. Oh, okay. I see what you said. Oh, you were saying my mom is short, and so it's my sister. They're like 5'3", I think. See, we got a bunch of shorties in here, I see. Cage Fighter says that my audience is petite. It's awesome. Anyway, oh wow, stepdad, 6'2". All right. See, we've got just a whole different, we're all different in height and stuff. And but like I said, that's why all this means so much. It's why it means so much to me. Once I read it, the first few times I didn't understand it. Now that you can see some of this stuff, it just brings it out and it just clarifies it and makes so much more sense. It really does. But look, I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed having you guys here hanging out with me, Cage Fighter, Amber, Pearl, Jenny, Spirit, Ain't Buying It, and let's see, and all the others, Little Seasonist. I know you were in here, and John Fry earlier. I know he had to leave. So you guys have been an awesome audience. You guys have been amazing as always. You're always amazing. And thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me in this channel. And I hope you guys, at least benefit from the from my southern rhetoric when it comes to all of this stuff. Sorry, I feel like my nose is itching real bad. But either way, regardless of that, I just wanted to tell you guys that I love you guys. You guys have been awesome and amazing. We've hit our 2 hour mark, actually a little over that, but so we're gonna shut this down for the evening. Like I said, we'll pick back up on like I said, on Tuesday of next week at 8 p.m. and I would be more than humbled and honored to have each and every one of you back in that live again whenever that time comes. You guys have been awesome and amazing. Thank you guys for being here. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Love you.